Hello, sir.
Hello, Aditya.
Sir, in any democracy, police plays an extremely important role. Right? For a society to function, let alone democracy, for any society to function, police is an extremely important actor in that. Recently, 9 policemen in Tamil Nadu, in Madurai, were sentenced to death for custodial torture. Custodial torture in India seems to be a very long debate. My first question to you is, and I want you to take your time and answer this, is it a symptom of something bigger or is it the actual disease in India? Symptom and disease. You hear these two words pretty often in any important issue. Let me unpack that for you. Symptom is what is visible, disease is the underlying cause. You cannot cure the symptom without curing the disease. Whereas, or rather, you will only cure the symptom if you cure the disease. So always focus on the disease.
It is a symptom of something bigger.
Okay.
Power is always prone to abuse. If power is unchecked, it will be always abused. It's inevitable in human society. And the ultimate power is the danda. All other powers are secondary. Even financial power is secondary. If I have power to arrest you, power to beat you up, power to shoot you down, that is the ultimate power. Police exercise that ultimate power. They have a duty to use force to break up an unlawful assembly. They have a duty to apprehend a potential criminal or criminal. They have a duty to use interrogative techniques, peaceful, non-violent techniques, but very strong techniques to ascertain the truth. And once that power is available to the police, unless it's kept under careful check, it will never be accountable. I have known countries where a police chief is feared more than the president or the prime minister of the country. I have actually known those countries. I've monitored the elections in some of those countries. So don't underestimate the power of the police. At the same time, if you innervate the police, make them ineffective without the police exercising due powers to protect the society, then society will be both lawless and dangerous.
Absolutely.
So you have to maintain a fine balance. This is a case where the police obviously abused the power in a horrific manner and they paid a heavy price, and we completely endorse that. It's necessary to send that signal, but that's not enough. We have to look at both the things. We must deconstruct this. On the one hand, how do you ensure that the police act lawfully in the interest of the public, not abuse power? What are the checks and balances required? But remember the other part. In this case, the police are the accused. They are the criminals. Now, unless you think of the victims with great empathy, protect their rights to get justice, it's not enough. You can't ask for victims' rights only when the police are the accused. In 99.9% cases, police are not the accused. Somebody else is the accused. Therefore, victims' rights must get primacy, just as the rights of the accused citizen, but not yet proven guilty, must get importance. Now, somehow in our discourse, in our understanding of human rights, the victims' rights are completely smothered, they're ignored. And all the rights are about the accused. And oftentimes they may be guilty. But the rights of the accused seem to be now taking over and at the cost of the rights of the victim. And that's the reason why India has one of the lowest rates of conviction in the world. One of the lowest rates of conviction in the world, whether it's a massive corruption or rape or murder or other heinous crimes. India is one of the countries where the chances of being convicted are very low. There's no certainty of punishment. So we must also look at that.
So you helped us understand that this issue is complex, right? I want to talk about the complexity itself, right? In this case, it seemed to be a very black and white picture, right? There was a custodial torture involved, and the police should have been punished, right? Do you think that because in my interactions with judges, with lawyers, what they seem to think is because police does not have scientific means of inquiry, because we don't invest in that, is why they have to resort to torture. Do you agree with that narrative?
Partly. But if you therefore legitimize torture and if you think it's the way things are done, that's a very dangerous trap. But you cannot impose an intolerable burden on the police and then expect them to behave in a very civilized and lawful manner. Let me give a couple of examples. There was Disha case in Hyderabad, a very tragic case where a dentist, I think, was brutally gang raped and murdered. There was an outcry from the society. What happened, I do not know for sure, but we can all imagine what happened. Ultimately, the accused were all shot down in a police encounter. The allegation was that they tried to attack the police while they were being apprehended or whatever, or they were transported, I think. And all society celebrated it. Now, this is obviously, at the first glance, abuse of power by the police. But an abuse of power imposed by society because we failed to clean up the criminal justice system. We failed to assure punishment for the gravity of the offenses swiftly, surely, and fairly. And therefore, we put the burden now on the police. There was a case earlier, I think sometime in 2006 or 7, in Warangal city in Telangana. Two innocent girls, college-going girls, they were attacked by a couple of thugs and they poured acid. One of the girls, I think, died immediately within hours. The other one survived but disfigured. Again, the society rose in revolt. The political system, I think, gave a license and they were shot dead. Now, if criminals of this kind are sentenced to death and quickly the punishment is imposed and executed, we all should be very happy. We need that. But without due process, if society imposes that intolerable burden on the police and then accuses the police, that's not the answer. So certainly the pressure is working on occasion. But that also became an excuse. Once you start abusing power, even if in pursuit of what is socially sanctioned, eventually it becomes personalized power. I opposed on both occasions very publicly. Because it's not that we have sympathy for the accused who probably are the guilty people here. But without proving the guilt, if you do that, tomorrow there's nothing that prevents you from them from executing you or me or my brother or sister for no good reason at all. So it's a very dangerous trap. Unless we build institutional mechanisms to ensure that the police are effective in conducting a fair investigation and bringing the culprits to the book, at the same time the citizens are protected from unfair prosecution or foisting a case against them unjustly, and you follow the due process. Both the things are equally important. Otherwise, we are in trouble. Right now, we haven't really worked enough in building a framework of rule of law. So it's not merely one thing. There are several things that require to be set right in the whole process of rule of law. Police, prosecution, forensics, procedures, and judicial delays themselves.
Yes. So that, I think, unpacks a lot of my sort of understanding. But I also have a few follow-up questions there, because you mentioned a line, and that's a wonderful line. You said abuse of power is imposed by society because society wants quick, swift justice because the system has failed. Society is sanctioning you to go ahead and abuse the power, right? Now it's very easy to vilify the police here, right? I also want to humanize them. They're probably the most overworked people in the country, right? They see
1,000 policemen are dying every year in the line of duty.
Yes.
Don't ever forget that. So if you destroy the police, like the American madness of defunding the police and society going against the police, means basically society going against order. Chaos and disorder and violence will be the result. So however much we dislike the police abuse, and we should dislike it, the moment you hate that khaki uniform, then the society will be in serious peril. So we have to really come up with very sensible, practical, measurable reforms which reconcile both the things. Empower the police adequately, but don't allow them to exceed the authority.
Exactly my point. Sir, we have our take on what the role of the state is, what the role of the executives, what the role of the judiciary is. This khaki seems to trigger something in people's minds, right? The policeman outside the khaki would be just a normal, but in the khaki uniform, the policeman also seems to get some weird authority and all of that. So my question to you is, because society also is very chameleon in nature. Sometimes it will champion that authority and sometimes it will question that authority. Is police reforms possible? Because it's a very complex issue.
Absolutely. See, there's a very famous Telugu literary work by a man called Gurujada Apparao, possibly the greatest modern literary work of Telugu language. Kanya Sulkam. It's a play, Bride Price. In that, it was in 1890s, well before Mahatma Gandhi or even Gopal Krishna Gokhale, etc. Early days of freedom struggle. One protagonist there, he gives a lecture about freedom struggle, about Congress in those days. 1885 Congress was created and all that. So an innocent Jatkawala, he asks a question of the protagonist. He says, Babu, if we get freedom and Congress comes to power, our head constable is bothering us, harassing us a great deal. Will he be changed? For the ordinary citizen, that was the question. That was the meaning of freedom. It's not Bharat Mata, it's not a flag, it's not some fundamental rights and all that. And I think we have really failed that Jatkawala post-independence. This is only symbolic. It's not merely about the policeman, but the abuse of authority was endemic in the colonial era. We accepted because partly society always thought of power as a personalized attribute. It's a feudal notion. Partly the racial superiority of the white people. Partly the colonial hangover that they are the masters and we are the mendicants and subjects. We were not citizens. So a combination of this created this appalling situation which continues in a substantial measure, not only in policemen. No, typically, in rural India, for instance, or when you deal with the poor, when the state deals with the poor, even an ordinary clerk or a constable, you know what he says when there's an encounter with ordinary citizens? I'm talking of non-violent encounter, not with guns. Do you know with whom you are talking?
Yes, yes.
It's a very common thing, whatever be the language. Do you know with whom you're talking? So this arrogance of position by virtue of being in government, that you are superior and the citizen has no right to talk to you, except as a serf, as a mendicant, as a subservient human being, obsequious, is internalized in our society. It's getting better with modernization, but not as fast as it should. Yes. Now, that's the context in which we are talking. Yes. And therefore, we should take in special steps. I have seen in Australia, as part of the Second Administrative Reforms Commission, all of us, the commission members, we all went to visit some countries to understand how things are managed there. We went to New South Wales state. Sydney is the capital of the state. You know how intricately the arrangements are made? The rules are common there and here with minor variations. But over the police, there is a body that monitors the investigative agency which is free from political and partisan influences. And B, they created an independent monitoring investigative agency if any complaints are there. And C, even above that agency, supposing they also falter, they create another one. It's a very intricate mechanism. And putting the right people in place. Yes. Take, for instance, at the time of independence, some great institutions came about because they were conceived well, and the founders actually built the practices and traditions within those. Election Commission of India, the Finance Commission of India, the CAG, and even I would say Union Public Service Commission, the four institutions functioning pretty well under the Constitution. But in the states, similar institutions like, for instance, the State Finance Commission, which came after the 73rd, 74th Amendments, or the State Public Service Commission came along with the original Constitution. By and large, they're not functioning well. So, apart from the constitutional design, the efforts made in the early days to build institutions were failed, and therefore, it's absolutely doable, but it's not going to be easy. Because now an ecosystem has come about where an MLA is the uncrowned king of the constituency. An MLA and the political executive controls all crime investigation because they control the fortunes, the job opportunities and the transfers and postings of the police officers. While this functioning is supposed to be independent, when you are controlled entirely in terms of transfers and postings and you are dependent on that, on the political executive, and when the government has the formal power to withdraw prosecution, and in case of anti-corruption law in 2017, I think, we did something very stupid, 2018, I think, Section 17A. Even to launch an investigation of corruption, you require the prior consent. So once you have given formal power, once there is actual informal power exercised through transfers and postings, your career is dependent on the goodwill of those there. It's impossible to isolate crime investigation from political vagaries and partisan influences and corruption. So you have to create a framework of independent crime investigation monitored by a judicial, quasi-judicial authority. This is one area where I would like more judicial involvement. But once the elected legislators have tasted this power,
Yes. Yeah.
and that's become now sort of internalized in the society. And once the police officials, even the well-meaning police officials, they want to combine all functions, law and order and crowd control, crime investigation, VIP protection, general protection of public properties, traffic management. A monolithic police force is now seen as the normal thing. So even in cases, well-meaning interventions, like for instance the Prakash Singh case, Supreme Court, instead of recognizing the need to separate in a really effective manner, they simply said, DGP must be appointed in a certain manner and everything is then okay. On paper, DGP is appointed in the manner Supreme Court directed. If anybody in India genuinely believes that the police functioning has been altered, then you're living in an alternate universe. So it's become now, it's set in stone. It's not going to be easy, but it has to be done. It will not be the first reform in India, but step by step. First, for instance, let's bring in forensics. Let's minimize the need for third degree, even to establish justice. No, that's a technical issue. Our forensic capability in the whole country is equivalent to about 2,000 criminal cases for the whole country in a year, which is ridiculous. They probably can do about 8,000 DNA fingerprinting analysis, for instance. Typically, in a criminal case, you require about 4 samples analysis. In a country where millions of cases are filed, 2,000 cases, that's all you can analyze. So what does the poor constable do? Where is the forensic capability? Take, for instance, another issue of prosecution. We have incredibly weak prosecution, one of the weakest in the world in terms of the numbers available, the powers available. Take, for instance, the court's helplessness in the face of obvious perjury. In a country where at a personal level we have a sense of morality and conduct, we don't lie, it is axiomatic that lying in courts is sort of universal. We think it's normal and natural. Many Western societies take perjury as a very serious moral offense, not only a legal offense. And therefore, legally also is very severely punished. In India, it's virtually impossible to punish for perjury. First of all, there's a process which is very complicated. Contempt of court powers, they're abused by the higher courts, where they ought not to use. But actually, in the interest of making this trial speedy and effective, the trial court is totally powerless. So these are things we can easily fix to start with. And you can have local courts where 80% of the simple cases, let them continue as they are doing. Heaven's not going to fall. You can't change overnight. But cases above a certain threshold, you only limit them to a separate independent investigation wing and prosecution wing. Completely outside the control of politicians. Maybe there's a chance that that will be accepted, at least in some states. So if you understand how to navigate the very complex political economy of the country, you can do it with great forethought. If you think there is one quick fix, DGP appointment, Prakash Singh case, sorry, it will not happen.
So you mentioned this, and this was going to be my next question, because there seems to be, and there's acceptance also about it, there is a political nexus that works in tandem with the police now, right? Your transfers are controlled by them, so your moolah, your reward is controlled by them. This sort of symbiotic relationship that is existing between, and like you said, it's set in stone. Do you think because of that we face the most resistance? Because, and the reason I'm asking this is because a lot of these reforms that we talk about in policing especially, it will make the lives of the police easier. You are overworked. We're taking burden off of your shoulders. It will be good for you. But they don't seem to care.
It's a chicken and egg situation. You view it from the negative point. Look at the other side. In a country where the police are not adequately accountable, they can do pretty much what they like. If the legislator or the political executive has no role at all in crime investigation, without creating conditions of fair investigation and accountability first.
For the police.
For the police. Then there's a genuine fear on the part of public representatives and the people that police will be unchecked. As I said before, there are countries where the police chief is feared more than the prime minister of the country or president of the country. So you can't do one without doing the other. So it's easy for me to ask for autonomy, independence, all that's wonderful. But if accountability is not already endemic, unless that's internalized, institutionalized effectively, autonomy is dangerous. No. Very distinguished former Chief Justice, Justice Venkatachalaya. I was arguing very fiercely when he was heading the National Commission to Review the Working of the Constitution, loosely called Constitution Review Commission. But this whole crime investigation, independence and police reform, etc. He said something very profound and very wise. He said, Dr. Jayaprakash, ours is a system of compensatory errors. The errors and distortions in one branch of government or one functionary are set right by the errors and distortions of another branch or another functionary. So unless you look at it holistically, piecemeal change without instituting fairness and accountability could be even more dangerous. Be very careful. That was one of the most important admonitions that I ever received. So we have anxiety to do it, but if you don't do it right, it can do more harm than good.
So this will be my last question on this. Police reforms, for whatever reason, like we mentioned, multiple reasons, but they face resistance a lot, right? They face resistance, of course, from the police. We also face resistance from the politicians. Public opinion on this matter is like I want to bring this back to that. Public opinion keeps shifting. If there is an extrajudicial violence,
I'm angry, I want them to be hanged and lynched, like
Yes.
a rape case. If my property is stolen, I want the accused to be beaten up and then somehow extract the stolen property.
absolutely.
So you can't have this dualism.
So how do you navigate public opinion?
So we have to educate the people about the risks and dangers. And also you must redefine the role of the police. A lot of time at the police, and police officials and professionals are better placed to give statistics, but a lot of time and attention are given to theft and recovery of stolen property. In no rational country is recovery of stolen property the primary task of the police. Insurance, other things will take care. But in India, still we have a feudal notion, therefore, you have to recover. In order to recover, there's a lot of pressure, and there's a lot of third degree, and so on. I'm not saying theft is not an offense, but the way a society looks at crime, the way society expects the police to deliver in certain forms also leads to certain consequences. It's not merely because police are bad and they want to abuse power. Police are like you and I. They're the same human being, the same good, honest, hardworking people who want to get into government job in this country where there's such fascination for government jobs. They entered there with idealism. But they became what they are because of certain set of circumstances. So don't make it a devil versus angel fight. It is a systemic issue. Look at it systemically and carefully.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, everybody. That was Dr. Jayaprakash Narayan, bringing much needed nuance to this often black and white painted picture in the Indian democracy. Thank you.